My name is Susan. I am 32 years old. I want to tell you my story. It is a story about love and pain. It is also a story about finding myself. 5 years ago, I married Maurice. He was tall and kind. He had brown eyes and a warm smile. I loved him very much. We lived in a small house. The house had 2 bedrooms and a garden. I planted flowers every spring. Maurice worked in an office downtown. I worked at a library near our home. Our life was simple and quiet. We had breakfast together every morning. We talked about our plans. We dreamed about the future. I thought we were happy. I really believe that. I trusted Maurice with my whole heart. He said he loved me. I said I loved him too. We never fought about big things. Sometimes we disagreed about small things, but we always made up quickly. I felt safe with him. I felt like I had a partner for life. I never imagined anything would change. I thought our love was strong. I thought we would grow old together, but I was wrong. Very wrong. Let me tell you about our normal life. Every morning I woke up at 6. I made coffee for both of us. Maurice liked his coffee black. I liked mine with milk and sugar. We sat at the kitchen table together. We talked about the weather. We talked about work. These were simple moments, but they made me happy. After breakfast, Maurice left for work. I kissed him goodbye at the door. He always said the same thing. "See you tonight, Susan." I always smiled and waved. Then I went to the library. I loved my job there. I help people find books. I read stories to children on Thursdays. I felt useful and content. In the evenings, Maurice came home around 6. I cooked dinner for us. Sometimes chicken, sometimes pasta. He always said my food was delicious. We ate together at the table. We watched TV after dinner. Sometimes we watched the news. Sometimes we watched a movie. On weekends, we went to the park. We held hands and walked slowly. We talked about buying a bigger house someday. We talked about having a baby. Maurice said he wanted a daughter. I wanted a son and a daughter. We laughed about our future children. Everything felt perfect and safe. I remember one Sunday afternoon very well. We were sitting in the garden. The sun was warm on my face. Maurice was reading a book. I was planting new roses. I looked at him and thought, this is love. This quiet, simple life is everything. I felt so lucky to have him. I never wanted anything to change. But life doesn't ask what we want. Things started to change in March. It was slow at first. Maurice came home one evening. He looked tired and distant. I made his favorite dinner. He barely touched it. I asked him what was wrong. He said, "Nothing, just work stress." I believed him. I always believed him. The next week, he came home late. He said he had a meeting. Then he was late again and again. I started to feel worried, but I didn't want to be a jealous wife. I tried to be understanding. Maurice stopped talking to me at breakfast. He looked at his phone constantly. When I asked about his day, he gave short answers. Fine, okay, nothing special. His eyes never met mine anymore. At night, He turned away from me in bed. The space between us grew bigger. I felt it, but I didn't understand it. One evening, I tried to hold his hand. He pulled away. My heart hurt, but I stayed quiet. I thought maybe he was sick, or maybe he was having problems at work. I asked him again if something was wrong. This time he got angry. "Why do you always ask me that?" His voice was cold and hard. I had never heard him speak like that. I felt scared. I apologized even though I didn't know why. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake wondering what I did wrong. Did I say something bad? Did I do something to hurt him? I searched my memory for answers. But I found nothing. The next few days were terrible. Morris barely spoke to me. He came home later and later. Sometimes he smelled like perfume, not my perfume. Someone else's. I wanted to ask him about it, but I was too afraid. Afraid of the answer, afraid of losing him. So I stayed silent and suffered alone. It was a Friday evening in April. I remember the date exactly, April 15th. Maurice came home at 7, earlier than usual. I felt a small hope in my chest. Maybe things would get better. Maybe we could talk and fix everything. I made dinner quickly, but Morris didn't eat. He sat down on the couch. He looked at me with empty eyes.
"Susan, we need to talk," he said.
My heart started beating very fast. I sat down next to him. My hands were shaking. "What is it?" I asked quietly. He took a deep breath. Then he said 5 terrible words. "I don't love you anymore." The room started spinning. I couldn't breathe properly. I stared at him in shock. "What?" I whispered. "I don't love you," he repeated. His voice was flat and emotionless. "But why? What happened?" I asked. Tears started falling from my eyes. Morris looked away from me. "I met someone else," he said. Those words cut through my heart like a knife. "Someone else?" I repeated. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Her name is Claire," he continued. "I've been seeing her for 2 months. I'm in love with her now." Each word made the pain worse. I started crying harder. "Please don't do this," I begged. "We can fix this, Morris. We can go to counseling. We can work on our marriage." But he shook his head. "It's too late, Susan. I'm leaving tonight." "Tonight?" I screamed. "You're leaving me tonight?" He stood up and walked to the bedroom. I followed him, crying and begging. "Please think about our 5 years together. Please think about all our plans. Please don't throw everything away." But Maurice didn't. "Listen." He packed a bag with his clothes. He took his toothbrush from the bathroom. He took his laptop from the desk. I watched him like I was watching a nightmare. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening to me. In 30 minutes, he was ready to leave. He walked to the front door. I grabbed his arm desperately. "Morris, please," I cried. "Please don't leave me." He looked at me one last time. There was no love in his eyes, only pity. "I'm sorry, Susan," he said. Then he opened the door and walked out. I heard his car start. I heard him drive away. I stood in the doorway crying. The house was completely silent now. empty, cold. I closed the door slowly. I fell to the floor and sobbed. My whole life had just walked out that door. Everything I knew was gone. In 1 hour, my world had ended. The next weeks were the darkest of my life. I called in sick to work. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't eat anything. Food tasted like nothing. I lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks. My friends called me, but I didn't answer. My mother came to visit. She held me while I cried. "He's gone, Mom," I sobbed. "He just left me for someone else." She didn't know what to say. Nobody knew what to say. At night, I called Morris's phone. He never answered. I sent him messages begging him to come back. He never replied. One day, I drove past his new apartment. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I hoped to see him alone. Maybe I hoped he missed me, but I saw him with her. With Claire. She was young and beautiful. She had long blonde hair. They were laughing together. He was holding her hand, the same way he used to hold mine. I felt my heart break all over again. I drove home crying so hard I could barely see. I thought about what was wrong with me. Why wasn't I enough for him? Why did he stop loving me? Was I too boring? Too ugly? Too ordinary? These questions tortured me every day. I looked in the mirror and hated what I saw. I stopped brushing my hair. I stopped wearing makeup. What was the point? Nobody loved me anyway. My friend Maria came to my house one day. She knocked on the door for 10 minutes. Finally, I let her in. She looked at me with worried eyes. "Susan, you can't live like this," she said. "You need to take care of yourself." But I pushed her away. "You don't understand," I told her. He was my everything. Without him, I'm nothing. Maria hugged me tight. "That's not true," she said. But I didn't believe her. I spent another week in darkness. I cried until I had no tears left. I felt completely alone in the world. I thought about Morris every single minute. I wondered if he thought about me at all. Probably not. He had Claire now. He had moved on so easily, while I was dying inside. This was my lowest point, the moment I almost gave up completely. But then something changed. It was a Tuesday morning in May. I woke up and saw sunlight through my window. I lay in bed for a long time. Then I thought something different. I thought, I can't live like this forever. Morris left me, but I'm still alive. I still have a life to live. It was a small thought, but it was something. I got out of bed slowly. I took a shower for the first time in days. The water felt good on my skin. I looked in the mirror again. This time, I didn't look away. I said to myself, "You will survive this." I got dressed and went outside. The fresh air felt wonderful. I walked around my neighborhood for an hour. It was the first step. The next day, I called Maria back. "I'm sorry I pushed you away," I said. "Can we have coffee together?" She was so happy to hear from me. We met at a small cafe downtown. We talked for 2 hours. She listened to everything. She didn't judge me. She just held my hand and listened. "You're going to be okay," she said. This time, I started to believe it. I went back to work the following week. My colleagues were kind and welcoming. The children at story time made me smile again. Small things started to matter again. I began to cook for myself. I ate healthy food and felt stronger. I started exercising in the mornings. I joined a book club that Maria recommended. I met new people there. They didn't know my sad story. They just knew me as Susan. Not Susan, the abandoned wife. Just Susan. It felt good to be just me. One day, I found my old painting supplies. Before I married Morris, I loved to paint, but I had stopped for some reason. I set up my easel in the garden. I painted the roses I had planted. I painted the sky and the trees. I felt something wake up inside me, something I had forgotten about. Myself, my own dreams and passions. Slowly, the pain became smaller. It didn't disappear completely, but it didn't control me anymore. 6 months after Morris left, I saw him. I was at the grocery store buying vegetables. He was in the next aisle with Claire. My heart jumped for a second, but then something strange happened. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no longing. Just nothing. I walked past them calmly. Maurice saw me and looked uncomfortable. I smiled a small smile, not for him, for myself. Because I realized I was free, free from the pain, free from needing him, free to be myself again. That night, I sat in my garden. I looked at the stars above me. I thought about everything that happened. Yes, Morris left me. Yes, it hurt terribly. Yes, I thought I would die from the pain, but I didn't die. I survived. And more than that, I discovered something important. I discovered that I am enough, all by myself. I don't need someone else to be complete. I don't need Morris or anyone to give me value. I have value because I exist, because I am Susan, a woman who loves books and children, a woman who paints beautiful pictures, a woman who survived heartbreak, a woman who is strong and brave. Now, I know that losing someone can mean finding yourself. Maurice leaving me was the worst day of my life, but it was also the beginning of my new life, a life where I learned to love myself first. And that is the most important love of all. If you liked this story, subscribe to the channel and see the next story to learn even more.